High in the Himalayas, there is a civilization that deliberately measures its national wealth not by money, but by happiness, and they enforce it by law. Let's step into the early morning chill of the Himalayas. The sun hasn't quite crested the jagged peaks yet, and the air is sharp, biting, and fragrant. If you take a deep breath, you don't smell exhaust. You smell the sweet, earthy smoke of burning juniper branches, an offering drifting up to the lightening sky. Beneath your feet, the worn stone steps are still damp from the overnight frost. Somewhere in the distance, a low, resonant hum begins to vibrate through the valley. It's the deep, guttural tone of a dungchen, the long copper horn played by Buddhist monks calling the dawn. You can hear the rhythmic, scratching sound of a bamboo broom sweeping a temple courtyard. A local woman passes by you on the path, spinning a small handheld prayer wheel, the faint clicking of the metal harmonizing perfectly with the wind. As the mist slowly begins to pull back, it reveals impossibly steep slopes draped in dense emerald forests. And there, clinging to the cliffs above, is a fortress of white stone and dark timber. We are stepping into a place where the physical world and the spiritual realm share the exact same ground. Welcome to Culture Journey. Today, we are walking the high-altitude trails of Bhutan, a small, independent kingdom locked within the formidable embrace of the Himalayas, pressed between the vast borders of India and Tibet. To the outside world, this country is often reduced to a few romanticized buzzwords, painted as a mythical Shangri-La untouched by the heavy hands of time. But the reality is far more profound and far more human. Here in Bhutan, or Drukyul as it is known to the people who call it home, cultural identity is not a relic preserved behind museum glass for tourists to look at. It is a daily, breathing practice. We are going to explore how myth, rugged landscape, and deeply held spiritual values weave together to form the backbone of a modern nation. This matters because, in an era where global cultures are rapidly blending into a single, uniform hum of screens and concrete, Bhutan has made a deliberate, sometimes incredibly difficult choice to hold fiercely to who they are. We'll look closely at how the legends of thunder dragons, the architecture of ancient cliffside fortresses, and the simple act of getting dressed in the morning all serve to anchor a people to their history, allowing them to calmly navigate the currents of the 21st century without losing their way. Let's begin with the air itself. If you were standing here, right on the edge of the Paro Valley, as a dark summer storm rolled in over the mountains, you would immediately understand how this country got its name. The Himalayas are vast, creating deep, echoing ravines. When heavy weather moves through these passes, it doesn't just rain. The sky cracks. The thunder echoes off the sheer rock faces, amplifying and rolling down the valleys in a deep, terrifying, and magnificent roar. To the ancestors of this land, that sound wasn't just meteorological. It was the physical voice of the Druk, the mythological thunder dragon. This belief is so deeply anchored that the people refer to their homeland as Drukyul, the land of the thunder dragon. And the people themselves are the Drukpa. When you walk through the capital city of Thimphu or wander through a remote farming village, the dragon is everywhere. It's carved into the heavy, fragrant wooden beams of doorways, painted in vivid pigments onto the walls of temples, and it dances proudly across the bright orange and yellow canvas of the national flag. But the Druk is not a monster to be slain, as it often is in Western folklore. Here the dragon is a protector. It represents the pristine purity of the country, the fierce guardianship of its spiritual heritage. As you listen to the thunder roll through the valley, you don't feel fear. You feel a profound sense of scale. You realize how small human beings are in the face of nature, and you begin to understand why the Bhutanese built their entire civilization around respecting the earth, rather than trying to conquer it. To truly feel how this myth shapes human movement, let's take a journey up the side of a mountain. The air grows noticeably thinner with every step. The dirt path is steep, weaving through dense forests of blue pine draped in pale, ghostly strands of Spanish moss. The physical effort makes your lungs burn slightly, but the Bhutanese grandmothers walking beside you, spinning their wooden prayer wheels and quietly chanting mantras, seem entirely unbothered by the sheer incline. As we round a sharp, rocky bend, the trees suddenly part. You are confronted with a sight that seems to defy gravity. Clinging impossibly to a sheer, vertical cliff face, nearly 3,000 feet above the valley floor, is Taktsang, the Tiger's Nest Monastery. It is a cluster of pristine white buildings with tiered golden roofs, looking as though it grew directly out of the living rock. Legend says that in the 8th century, Guru Rinpoche, the revered saint who brought Buddhism to Bhutan, flew to this exact cave on the back of a flaming tigress to subdue a local demon that was terrorizing the valley. To a purely rationalist mind, this is a beautiful fairy tale. But as you stand on the edge of the ravine, listening to the waterfall crash into the gorge below and the low, resonant chanting echoing from the cliffside windows, the legend feels tangibly real. The locals walking beside us don't hike up here for a breathtaking view or a social media photograph. They climb to accumulate merit, to physically demonstrate their devotion. The arduous, exhausting journey is the point. The myth of the flying tigress is a living reality that dictates the physical movements of thousands of people every year. The landscape itself is considered holy geography, a map of spiritual events rather than just geological formations. You can see this same fusion of the spiritual and the physical in the very buildings that anchor the valley floors. Imagine we have descended from the cliffs and are now walking up a wide stone path toward the Punakha Dzong, the Palace of Great Happiness. The sheer size of it is staggering. Towering, inward-sloping white walls rise from the exact confluence of two rivers, the Fochu and the Mochu, the father and mother rivers. What would surprise you most about this massive, complex fortress is that it was built in the 17th century without a single iron nail, and entirely without a blueprint. Master carpenters and architects known as Zhao Pun did not draft plans on paper. Instead, they meditated. They visualized the massive structure through spiritual inspiration, relying entirely on mental maps and sacred geometry passed down through generations. As we step through the massive, heavy timber doors, run your hand along the wood. It is smooth from centuries of human touch, painted with natural pigments that tell the stories of the Buddha and the lineage of Bhutanese saints. The Dzong is not just a castle or an archaic monument. It is the beating heart of the community today. Half of the building is dedicated to civic administration, where modern laws are debated, where the district governor works, and where civil servants go about their daily tasks. The other half is entirely monastic, home to hundreds of monks chanting scriptures and preserving ancient rituals. In much of the world, we are deeply accustomed to the separation of the sacred and the mundane, but here, standing in the fragrant, incense-heavy air of the Dzong central courtyard, you see a culture that firmly believes governance and spirituality must share the exact same roof. A good leader must have a compassionate spiritual heart, and a monastic body must understand the practical needs of the people. They are two halves of the same whole. This seamless blending of the past and the present isn't just found in grand architecture. It's woven directly into the fabric of everyday life. Let's leave the ancient fortress and sit on a wooden bench near a busy intersection in Thimphu, Bhutan's capital, and just watch the people walk by. It is late afternoon, the golden hour, and schools have just let out. Office workers are heading home. Notice what they are wearing. You won't see a sea of denim jeans, business suits, or mass-produced graphic t-shirts. You will see men wearing the go, a knee-length robe tied tightly at the waist by a woven cloth belt, forming a large pouch at the front. You'll see women wearing the kira, an elegant ankle-length dress made of beautifully patterned hand-woven textiles, fastened at the shoulders with intricate silver brooches called komas. To an outsider arriving for the first time, it might look as though everyone in the city is dressed up for a special traditional festival. But this is just a normal Tuesday. This is the national dress. Decades ago, as Bhutan slowly began to open its doors to the outside world, the tide of globalization threatened to wash over the small nation, just as it had done to so many unique cultures globally. In response, the government formalized a code of etiquette called Driglam Namza, which included the wearing of the go and kira in schools, government offices, and during formal occasions. It is incredibly easy to look at this from the outside and see it merely as a rigid, top-down rule. But if you sit and talk to a young Bhutanese university student who might be checking their smartphone while casually adjusting the heavy fold of their go, you hear a very different story. The clothing is a daily physical assertion of identity. In a world where you can so easily lose yourself to the homogenization of the internet, putting on the national dress every morning is a quiet act of cultural defiance. It says, I know exactly who I am, and I know where I come from. The texture of the raw silk, the specific geometric patterns woven by mothers and grandmothers in the eastern districts, these aren't just clothes to keep warm. They are archives of family history and regional pride, worn directly against the skin. As the afternoon fades into early evening, let's step away from the city and inside a local farmhouse in a rural valley. The air inside is warm, smelling faintly of dried red chilies, wood smoke, and rich butter. We are offered a cup of suja, Bhutanese butter tea, salty, creamy, and deeply comforting against the creeping mountain chill. Here, in the quiet, fire-lit intimacy of a family kitchen, we touch upon a philosophy that usually belongs in sterile economic forums: gross national happiness. You have likely heard this term before, but sitting here, warming your hands around a wooden cup of tea, you realize what it actually means on the ground. It is not about a population walking around with a permanent, joyful smile. It is a profound, systemic philosophy rooted deeply in Buddhist values. When Bhutan's fourth king famously declared that gross national happiness is more important than gross domestic product, he wasn't making a whimsical statement. He was laying down a strict survival strategy for a vulnerable culture. In practice, it means that before a new highway is built, before a mine is opened, or a forest is logged for timber, the leadership must ask fundamental questions. How will this affect the psychological well-being of the local people? How will it impact our cultural traditions? How will it harm the environment? Because of this philosophy, Bhutan has become the first carbon-negative country in the world, a rigorous standard only a handful of nations have ever achieved. Their constitution strictly mandates that at least 60% of the nation's land must remain under forest cover for all time. Think about the gravity of that promise. If we look out the small, carved wooden window of the farmhouse, the rolling hills are blanketed in towering blue pines and dense broadleaf forests. The locals living here believe that these forests, the rushing rivers, and the high mountain peaks are inhabited by local deities and ancient spirits, the Tsen and the Lu. To pollute a river with industrial waste, or to unnecessarily cut down an old-growth tree, isn't just an environmental crime punishable by a fine. It is a spiritual offense that brings deep imbalance to the world. Therefore, environmental conservation in Bhutan isn't an imported scientific initiative. It is an ancient religious duty. The myth of the mountain spirits actively protects the physical ecology. The past actively guards the future. As night finally settles over the deep valleys of Druk Yul, the stars begin to appear with a piercing, diamond-like clarity that you can only ever find at this high altitude. Across the hillsides, the monasteries and temples light up with hundreds of small, flickering butter lamps, glowing like scattered embers in the dark. Looking at those warm lights in the vast Himalayan night, you realize what Bhutan truly offers to the rest of the world. It isn't a perfect utopia, and it isn't an escape from modern reality. It is a mirror held up to our own rapidly changing societies. Deep down, no matter where we are from, what language we speak, or what clothes we wear, we all carry a fundamental human need for belonging. We crave a connection to our ancestors, to the physical land we walk on, and to a community that holds shared meaning. In our global rush toward endless progress, much of the world has quietly sacrificed these unquantifiable things on the altar of speed, convenience, and wealth. Bhutan reminds us that continuity is a choice. Tradition does not have to be a heavy anchor that holds a society back. It can be the very foundation that allows a society to stand firm and balanced, while the chaotic winds of the world howl around it. It teaches us that true, enduring identity is carved not just in the stone of ancient fortresses, but in the gentle, deliberate habits of daily life. Thank you for walking these high-altitude trails with us today, and for sharing in this cultural journey. If this experience resonated with you, if you enjoy slowing down and stepping inside the deeper human stories of our world, please leave a like, share this video with a fellow traveler, and subscribe to the channel. We have so many more places to explore, and so much more to understand together. Until our next journey, take care of yourselves and keep seeking the stories that connect us all.